the Super Bowl 58 matchups slash X factors. I think really the X factors are the top 10 players that I named there. So let's talk about some matchups that I'm going to keep my eyes on. I think a matchup that people might overlook is this is going to be a battle of defenses. We're talking about the second and third best defense in the NFL in terms of points per game given up. They're both in the top 10 in terms of yards per game, but I really like to focus on that points per game stat because we know you can put up yards, but if you're not scoring in the end zone and if you're not allowing people to score if they get down in your red zone and you're holding them to field goals, it's going to make you that much better of a defense. We've got a Steve Wilks. I want to be sure there. I want to say that Steve Wilks with the Niners. Did it. Yep. So we've got a Steve Wilks led defense versus a Steve Spagnuolo defense, two of the best defensive minds in the NFL. Again, second and third best defense in points. And, I think this is going to be a low scoring affair. I'm going to give you my final score prediction once we get to the end of the Super Bowl 58 segment here. But both of these defenses are going to be great. It's going to be a defensive squabble, just like I said in the AFC Championship game. And I think the Chiefs are equipped for that. They understand that there's not going to be a lot of points in this game. Points are going to be at a premium. And again, when you have a L'Jarius Sneed, a Drew Tranquill, a Trent McDuffie, a Chris Jones, George Karloftis versus a Fred Warner, you're going to have a Nick Bosa. I didn't even mention Chase Young. I don't believe Chase Young is a top 10 player in the Super Bowl, but he will definitely be an X factor. Give me some more Niners defensive players. Drawing a blank on them, but of course we name them here, in the segment. We've talked about the Niners as a team all year, so definitely see both of these defenses having a tough time. Not a tough time. It's going to be a good matchup of both of these defenses going up against each other. But more than anything, I'm interested in seeing Brock Purdy versus arguably the best defense in the NFL in the best game of the NFL, in the biggest game of his career. Throw that Mr. Irrelevant stuff out of the window. You just gave us 4,200 yards, 31 touchdowns, 11 picks, over 100 passer rating. You're in the Super Bowl. You were the one seed. We got to throw all that out the window now. Brock Purdy's here. He's in this major game. And I think Brock Purdy going up against this Kansas City Chiefs defense is going to tell us a lot about who he actually can be. Because even though that Lions defense wasn't great in the NFC Championship game, which it was not, they still mounted that 17-point comeback. I think that was more on the shoulders of the Lions fumbling the bag than it was the Niners getting themselves back into that game. But what is Brock Purdy going to be against Steve Spagnuolo? He's going to have way more talent at his disposal than Patrick Mahomes does. Will he be able to find that Kittle? Will he be able to implement that CMC, find the check down, look for the Debo or Ayuk out in the field, be able to take off and scramble with it like he did in the AFC Championship game? This is the best defense Brock Purdy's going to play in the biggest game of his career to have one of the biggest accomplishments in his career, and I'm excited to see it. Travis Kelce and Fred Warner. I remember a couple of years ago when the Bucks and the Chiefs went to the Super Bowl, I said, I'm going to look for Levante David and Devin White to be able to contain Travis Kelce. And Travis Kelce still had over his 100 yards, even though the Chiefs got blown out in that game due to no offense. But I think Travis Kelce and Fred Warner are going to have their hands full. And even Travis Kelce, let me just say, Travis Kelce versus that linebacking core. Fred Warner, we know Drew Tranquill is going to be in there. And how they're able to manipulate Travis Kelce, getting him in those tight coverages, being able to throw him off his spot, getting a hand into the pass, and Mahomes is going to have a very slim window to throw that football into in the Super Bowl. This is going to be a big matchup to watch because if Travis Kelce gets going, if there's 11 targets for 11 catches over 100 yards and a touchdown, the Niners are going to have a long day. The Ravens essentially had a long day. They just tailored Kelce back, and he wasn't as potent as the game went on. But every time the ball was thrown his way, he caught it. He had a couple of clutch catches, catching across his body, catching over in the corner of the end zone. If the Niners don't figure out how to get Kelce off his spot, along with Mahomes as well, which the pass rush is going to be major, that's why I mentioned the defenses, it's going to be a long day for San Francisco. I also think Fred Warner and that linebacking core are going to have their hands full with a Christian McCaffrey. Again, we know he can receive it. We know he can rush it. We know he's a touchdown machine. Only 2 total turnovers on the year, 3 fumbles, 2 of them lost. He takes care of the football very, very well. And if Christian McCaffrey gets going, it could be a long day for the Chiefs also. I think both of these defenses are going to be able to hold these star players in check, and I believe it will come down to possible turnover. I hate to sound so recitative or feel like I'm reciting the same thing here on the episodes, but when you have these tight games, when you have these defenses that go up against each other, it's going to have to be turnovers. We saw that the Ravens lose the turnover battle, and the score might not indicate it, but the Ravens got outplayed pretty heavily in the last game. Now, the Chiefs didn't score anything, but in the same breath, they possibly didn't have to because they had a 10-point lead. Back to Fred Warner and really this linebacking core versus Christian McCaffrey. If Christian McCaffrey can get on some of those Texas routes, some of those screens, some of those slip routes, maybe after throwing a block, we know that he's a walking one play touchdown, just like we used to say and still say with Tyreek Hill in Miami and when Tyreek Hill was with the Kansas City Chiefs as well. And there's plenty more matchups that we could go over, but these are our main ones. The last one here, the Chiefs secondary versus that Niners passing game. Kittle, Ayuk, and Debo, there's more weapons, I feel like, in totality, even though Mahomes and Kelsey are very great. Outside of them, yeah, you got Pacheco, which I'll argue he's the third part of the trio, but Rashee Rice, MVS, Kadarius Toney, Miko Hardman, Noah Gray, Blake Bell, not necessarily a whole lot of offense. I feel like that the not a whole lot of offensive talent that the Niners are going to have to worry about, more of the offensive schemes and play calling with the blessing of Big Red and Andy Reid, and obviously the master executioner in Patrick Mahomes. But George Kittle, Brandon Ayuk, Debo Samuel versus L'Jarius Sneed, Trent McDuffie, Drew Tranquil. Will the Niners passing game be too much for the Chiefs secondary? I don't think so. Again, I think this is going to be a stalemate. If each quarterback has 185 yards passing, if that, maybe they get to 225 or 230, which I feel like anytime you break 200 yards in a game and your last name is Mahomes, Allen, Herbert, Hurts, Burrow, you're going to get praise. Will it be an extravagant game by their standards? No. But if Patrick Mahomes doesn't have a lot of, passing yards or attempts, but he comes out with that Super Bowl win and more than likely that Super Bowl MVP, depending on how the game goes, then no one's really going to bat an eye. But will that Chiefs secondary, again, with a guy who can, force turnovers in big spots like L'Jarius Sneed, with a Trent McDuffie who became an All-Pro, with a Drew Tranquil in that linebacking core, even Christian McCaffrey with this passing game here, along with Kittle, Ayuk, and Debo. I think it's going to be a lot of play calling mismatches. And again, we're talking about the biggest game of the year. We're talking about, arguably the two best head coaches in the NFL. Of course, we don't have John Harbaugh here. We don't have Mike Tomlin and some of the other great names out there. But what will each of these defenses do to throw the other team's offense off? My final score prediction for this game, give me Kansas City to 2-peat. Yes, they're going back to back. Patrick Mahomes will probably bring home that Super Bowl MVP. He'll have 3 rings in 4 years. He will have 3 Super Bowl MVPs. Arguably, you can say he should win his 3rd MVP. Big Red will get his win. I've got the Chiefs winning 24-21. And I believe the media and all the questions about Kyle Shanahan being a long-term guy in San Francisco, despite how great he's been, will they be able to get him over the hump? Because it's just like when we talk about the Steelers. What is your standard? Is it making the playoffs in the NFC Championship every year? With the Steelers, is it just having a winning season? Is it getting bounced in the first round? Or is it getting to the mountaintop and finishing the job? And we know how hard this is in the NFL. We know it's very hard to win in this league. We know it's very hard to win the Super Bowl. And this is Kyle Shanahan's 3rd. Kyle Shanahan's 3rd Super Bowl in 8 years, if I'm not mistaken. We had the Falcons in 2016. We had the Chiefs in 2019. Excuse me. Yeah, he went with the Falcons in 2016, the Niners in 2019, and then he's going with the Niners again this year. But he's been to the NFC Championship plenty of times. Give me the Chiefs 24-21 in Super Bowl 58.